My dad said I was lucky to have this job when I asked for a raise. After 3 years running his company without one, he refused, then hired my loser golden brother for 3 times my salary. So I quit. But next week, I got lucky with a competitor offering 40% more. He was less lucky when 3 other people followed me out, and now they're facing bankruptcy and begging me to come back. All right, Reddit, strap in because this story is about family business betrayal, golden child syndrome on steroids, and the most satisfying career move I've ever made. It's also about watching karma work faster than Amazon Prime delivery. So I'm 29, been working at my dad's commercial HVAC company since I was 22. Started right out of college with a business degree and an HVAC certification I got on the side because I actually wanted to understand the industry I was getting into. Novel concept, I know. My dad owns SCS, does commercial HVAC installation and maintenance for office buildings, hospitals, schools, the whole 9 yards. When I started, it was pulling in about $8 million a year with 45 employees. Let me paint you a picture of how this family dynamic works. My younger brother Derek, 26, is the golden freaking child. Always has been. This dude coasted through life on charm and our parents' wallet. Switched majors 4 times in college. Started in business, switched to communications, then marketing, then sports management. Took 6 years to graduate with a degree in sports management from a party school nobody's heard of, where the main qualification was showing up drunk to tailgates. His big career move after graduation? Worked as a brand ambassador. Handed out free samples for an energy drink company for 8 months before getting fired for showing up hungover too many times. Then, he consulted for a buddy's startup that failed within 6 months. Then, he tried to launch his own lifestyle brand, selling overpriced gym apparel with motivational quotes. That lasted about 3 months before he gave up. Last I heard before he joined Sterling, he was doing social media marketing for a local restaurant chain, which mostly involved taking pictures of food and posting them on Instagram. He got let go from that too, when they realized his 50,000 Instagram followers were mostly bots he'd paid for and weren't actually driving any business. But according to our parents, Derek was finding himself and exploring his options, and would definitely land somewhere perfect eventually. Meanwhile, I was grinding 60-hour weeks and getting asked when I was going to do something meaningful with my degree. The favoritism wasn't subtle. Never had been. Growing up, Derek got a new car for his 16th birthday. I got to share mom's old minivan and pay for my own gas. Derek's college was fully paid. Tuition, housing, spending money, the works. I got partial tuition coverage and had to work part-time plus take out loans for the rest. Derek's spring break trips to Cancun? Funded. My need for a new laptop for classes? Can't you just use the library computers? When Derek graduated, finally after 6 years, they threw him this huge party at a nice restaurant. Invited like 40 people. When I graduated on time with honors and a job lined up, we went to Olive Garden. Just the 4 of us. Dad spent the whole dinner talking about some deal he was working on. And here's the thing that really drove it home. When I started at Sterling, working my ass off, learning the business, Dad would constantly point out every mistake I made. That's not how we do things here, son. You need to think more strategically. Stop trying to change things just to change them. But when Derek freaked up at his various jobs, oh, that company didn't deserve him anyway. They didn't recognize his potential. It's their loss. Meanwhile, I was busting my ass from day one. Started in the warehouse doing inventory and logistics, then moved to project coordination, then operations management. By year 2, I was essentially running the entire day-to-day operation while my dad handled sales and big client relationships. And here's the thing, I was freaking good at it. When I took over operations, we were constantly behind schedule, bleeding money on inefficient routing, and our customer satisfaction scores were hovering around 72%. Our techs were driving all over the state with no real logic to their routes. We had guys driving past job sites to get to other job sites, racking up insane fuel costs and wasted time. Parts inventory was a disaster. We'd either have way too much of stuff we didn't need or run out of critical components right when we needed them. Within 6 months, I restructured our entire dispatch system, implemented new project management software that actually worked, not the garbage system Dad had bought from his golf buddy, and reorganized our field teams by specialty instead of geography. Suddenly, our commercial guys weren't wasting time on residential calls. Our installation crews weren't getting pulled off jobs to do emergency repairs. Everything ran smoother. Customer satisfaction shot up to 94%. We cut our overtime costs by 30% while actually improving response times. Turns out when you don't have guys driving 3 hours each way to job sites, they can actually finish work during regular hours. Our safety incident rate dropped to almost zero because I actually gave a shit about proper training and equipment instead of just buying the cheapest gear possible. I also completely revamped our vendor relationships. Dad had been overpaying for parts for years because he was loyal to suppliers who'd been screwing us on pricing. I brought in competitive bidding, negotiated bulk purchase agreements, and built relationships with manufacturers instead of just going through distributors. Saved us probably $300,000 a year just on materials costs. The preventive maintenance contracts I set up became a huge revenue stream. Instead of just responding to emergencies, we had scheduled service agreements with buildings all over the city. Steady, predictable income. Clients loved it because their systems never broke down. We loved it because we could schedule work efficiently instead of scrambling for emergency calls. I brought in the software systems that let us track everything: job costs, technician productivity, parts usage, customer history. Dad had been running the business off paper schedules and gut feelings. I gave us actual data to make decisions with. By year 3, this year, I'd helped grow the company to $14 million in annual revenue. We were up to 68 employees. I'd brought in 3 major hospital contracts that were worth about $2 million annually combined. The school district deal I landed would run for 5 years and included maintenance contracts for 23 buildings. That alone was worth $4 million over the contract term. I was working 60 to 70-hour weeks minimum, running operational meetings every Monday morning, handling vendor negotiations, personally overseeing our 3 largest installation projects, taking emergency 2 a.m. service calls when our on-duty tech couldn't handle it because I actually knew how to troubleshoot complex systems, interviewing and training new hires, reviewing financials, planning expansion. I was doing the job of at least 3 people, and getting paid less than a first-year operations manager at any other company in the industry. And here's what I was getting paid for all this: $62,000 a year. Yeah, you read that right. 62 grand to run a $14 million operation. No bonuses, no profit sharing, no equity stake, just a salary that wouldn't even cover a decent apartment in most cities. I'd asked for raises twice before. First time after my first year, Dad said, "Let's see how year 2 goes." Second time after year 2, he said, "Money's tight right now. Maybe next year." Which was bullshit, because I'd seen the financials. We'd had our most profitable year ever. So 3 months ago, I decided to grow a spine and asked for what I actually deserved. Made a whole presentation. Pulled together 3 years of data showing exactly how much value I'd added. Comparison salaries for operations managers at similar-sized companies in our industry. Average $95,000 to $120,000. Documentation of every major achievement, every contract I'd helped secure, every cost savings initiative I'd implemented. I went into his office on a Tuesday morning. He was reading the newspaper and drinking coffee, doing his usual Lord of the Manor routine. "Dad, got a minute? Want to talk about my compensation?" He didn't even look up from the sports section. "Your what now?" "My salary. I've been here 3 years, haven't had a raise, and I think it's time we discuss bringing my pay in line with industry standards and my actual responsibilities." That got his attention. He put down the newspaper, leaned back in his chair with this amused little smirk. "Industry standards? Son, you're working for family. That's worth more than money." Deep breath. Stay professional. I understand that, but I'm also running the entire operation of a company doing $14 million a year for $62,000. That's not sustainable long term. Sustainable? He actually laughed. "You're lucky to have this job. You know how many kids your age would kill to work somewhere their old man could teach them the business? You're getting an education here money can't buy. I've been getting an education for 3 years, while increasing revenue by 75% and improving literally every operational metric we track. I'm not asking for unreasonable. I'm asking for fair." He stood up, walked to his window overlooking the warehouse floor. Classic power move. "You want to know what fair is? Fair is, I gave you a shot when you had 0 experience. Fair is, I'm setting you up to eventually take over this company. Fair is, you've got job security most people your age don't have. And you're bitching about salary? I'm not bitching, I'm negotiating. There's a difference. Here's a negotiation for you." He turned back to face me. "You can keep your current salary and be grateful, or you can go test that free market you're so confident about. See how far your 3 years of experience gets you without your daddy's company on your resume." I just stared at him. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a threat. I'll think about it, I said, and left his office. That was on a Tuesday. On Thursday, the bomb dropped. Thursday afternoon, Dad calls an all-hands meeting in the warehouse. Everyone's standing around wondering what's going on. We never do all-hands meetings unless something major is happening. I'm thinking maybe he landed a huge new contract, or we're opening a new location. Nope. Better. So much better. Folks, got some exciting news. Dad's doing his big speech voice, the one he uses with clients. As you all know, SCS has been growing rapidly. That growth means we need to expand our leadership team. So I'm thrilled to announce that my son Derek will be joining us as our new Director of Business Development. He's got innovative ideas and connections that'll take us to the next level. I felt my stomach drop. Derek? Director of Business Development? The guy who got fired from handing out free Red Bulls? And then came the part that made my blood boil. Derek's going to be focusing on expanding our market presence and bringing in new business. He'll be working closely with me on strategy and client relations. This is an exciting time for the Sterling family and the Sterling Company. After the meeting, I cornered my dad in his office. What the hell was that? What was what? Derek? Director of Business Development? He doesn't know shit about HVAC or running a business. He doesn't need to know about HVAC. That's what the technical guys are for. He knows people. He's got personality. That's what sales is about. What's his salary? I asked, even though I already knew I wasn't going to like the answer. Dad shifted uncomfortably. That's between me and him. Bullshit. I'm operations manager. I need to know what our overhead looks like. He sighed. He's starting at $175,000 base plus commission structure. I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. $175,000? Are you freaking kidding me? He's making almost 3 times what I make. He's in sales. Sales is different. Plus, he's got experience in brand development. Brand development? He handed out energy drinks at college parties. Watch your tone. Derek's going to bring fresh perspective. And frankly, your attitude right now is exactly why you're not ready for more responsibility. That did it. That freaking did it. You know what? You're right. I'm not ready for more responsibility here. I quit. His face went from annoyed to shocked in about half a second. You what? I quit. Effective 2 weeks from today. You want to pay your unqualified son 3 times what you pay the person actually running your company? Go for it. But you're doing it without me. Now hold on. No. I asked for fair compensation. You told me I was lucky to have a job. So I'm going to go be lucky somewhere else. I'll send my formal resignation email within the hour. I walked out, went back to my office, typed up the most professional resignation letter I could manage while my hands were shaking with rage, and hit send. The next few days were weird as hell. Dad tried the whole, let's talk about this routine, but I wasn't interested. Mom called crying, saying I was tearing the family apart. Derek, and this was the best part, actually texted me saying no hard feelings, bro. Like he had nothing to do with this. Like him waltzing in making $175,000 for a made-up position while I was getting peanuts wasn't the entire freaking problem. I didn't respond to any of them. Just showed up, did my job, and started updating my resume. Here's where it gets interesting. 3 of my key people approached me separately during that 2-week period. Ryan, my head field supervisor. Lisa, who handled all our major accounts. And Tom, our lead project manager. All 3 had been with the company for years. All 3 were worth their weight in gold. And all 3 had apparently been as fed up with the family favoritism bullshit as I was. Ryan was first, pulled me aside during a site inspection. Heard you're leaving, he said. Yep, time to move on. Where are you going? Don't know yet, putting out feelers. He was quiet for a minute. Then, I've been thinking about leaving too. This Derek thing is bullshit. We all know it. If you land somewhere good, let me know. I might want to come with you. Same conversation happened with Lisa the next day, and Tom the day after that. That's when I realized I had more leverage than I thought. I started reaching out to competitors, put my resume on a few industry job boards. Within 48 hours, I had 3 companies wanting to talk. By the end of week 1, I had 2 solid offers, but the best one came from Apex Climate Systems. They're the biggest HVAC operation in the state, doing about $45 million a year. Their COO called me directly after seeing my resume. We've been watching Sterling's growth the last few years, he said. Word in the industry is that's mostly your doing. I've had a hand in it, I said, being modest. Our current operations manager is retiring in 6 months. We need someone who can step in and hit the ground running. Looking at your track record, you're that person. We'd be willing to offer $95,000 base salary, performance bonuses that could add another $20,000 annually, full benefits including 401k matching, and we can talk about equity options after your first year. I almost dropped my phone. $95,000 base. That was a 53% increase from what my dad was paying me. Add in bonuses, and I'd be making more than my golden child brother with his bullshit title. When do you need an answer? I asked. Take a few days. Think about it. But between you and me, we'd really like to have you. I didn't need a few days. I knew my answer. But I played it cool, told him I'd get back to him by end of week. I spent the next 2 days casually mentioning this offer to Ryan, Lisa, and Tom. Didn't push anything, just let them know where I was potentially landing. All three of them asked if Apex was hiring. By the time my 2 weeks at Sterling were up, I'd accepted Apex's offer and put in a good word for Ryan, Lisa, and Tom. All three had interviews scheduled. My last day at Sterling was tense. Dad tried one final time to get me to stay. You're making a mistake, he said. This company was going to be yours someday. No, it wasn't, I replied. It was going to be Derek's. You made that pretty clear when you hired him for 3 times my salary to do a job he's not qualified for. He's family. I'm trying to give both my sons opportunities. You gave him an opportunity. You gave me a lesson in knowing my worth. Thanks for that. Genuinely. I walked out, didn't look back, started at Apex 2 weeks later. The job was everything they promised. Better facilities, better equipment, better systems. And I actually had a budget to work with instead of having to beg for every goddamn thing. Within my first month, I'd identified 3 major efficiency improvements we could implement. My boss actually listened to my ideas and gave me the resources to execute them. Best part? Ryan, Lisa, and Tom all got hired within 6 weeks of me starting. Ryan became a senior field operations manager. Lisa took over 2 of their largest accounts. Tom got promoted to regional project director. All 3 were making more money than they'd made at Sterling, with better benefits. Meanwhile, back at SCS, shit was apparently falling apart. I didn't hear about it directly at first, but word travels in this industry. People talk. Technicians know technicians. Project managers grab beers together. Sales reps gossip worse than high school kids. And apparently Sterling was becoming a shit show of legendary proportions. Derek, shockingly, turned out to be completely freaking useless at his made-up position. Week 1, he spent most of his time getting new business cards printed and setting up his office. Week 2, he wanted to rebrand the company and hired some designer friend to mock up a new logo that looked like it was made in MS Paint. Dad actually approved the $15,000 invoice for this garbage before someone with sense shut it down. Week 3, Derek decided we needed a company Instagram account to connect with younger clients. Posted pictures of himself in a suit standing in front of HVAC equipment with captions like boss vibes and building the future, one system at a time. Got about 47 followers, 40 of which were his friends or bots. His business development mostly consisted of taking long lunches with potential clients that never turned into actual contracts. He'd come back from these lunches talking about all these promising connections and relationships he was building. But I heard from the warehouse guys that his expense reports were just receipts from steakhouses where he was eating alone or with his college buddies. The few leads he did bring in were either too small to be worth pursuing, or he'd made promises about pricing and timelines that were completely unrealistic. He quoted one school district job at 40% below cost because he didn't understand how to calculate installation expenses. Dad had to personally call them and renegotiate, which made us look incompetent. Another time, Derek promised a hospital we could install a complete new HVAC system in 6 weeks. Our actual timeline for that scope of work was 4 months minimum. When I pointed this out in a meeting, Derek said, "We just need to be more aggressive with deadlines." Yeah, because physics and building codes totally care about your aggressive timeline, dumbass. But the absolute worst was when he tried to upsell a longtime client on a system upgrade they didn't need. This was a client we'd been working with for 15 years. They trusted us. Derek straight up lied about their current system failing to try to make a sale. The facility manager called my dad directly to complain. We almost lost a $200,000 annual maintenance contract because Derek thought he was playing used car salesman. He spent most of his time posting on LinkedIn about disrupting the HVAC industry with thought leadership posts he clearly didn't write himself. 5 ways climate control is revolutionizing modern business. Why your HVAC system is actually your best employee. Cringe shit that got like 12 likes from other people's moms. Without me handling operations, my dad had to step back in, but he hadn't run day-to-day operations in 3 years. He didn't know the new systems I'd implemented, didn't understand the workflows I'd optimized. Didn't know which vendors we were using or why. Kept reverting to old methods that hadn't worked, which is exactly why I'd changed them in the first place. I'd set up this whole digital dispatch system where techs got assignments on tablets with all the job history, parts needed, customer notes. Dad went back to calling guys on the phone and having them write shit down on clipboards. Response times immediately doubled. I'd negotiated bulk pricing agreements with our main suppliers. Dad apparently let some of those lapse and went back to ordering shit at retail prices because we'd always worked with them before. Never mind that I'd gotten us 35% discounts by committing to volume orders. The preventive maintenance scheduling system I'd built, Dad didn't understand how it worked, so they just stopped using it. Went back to reactive service calls only. Lost thousands in predictable monthly revenue. Without Ryan, their field operations went to hell. Response times doubled. They started missing deadlines. Customer complaints shot up because nobody was coordinating the techs properly. Guys were showing up to jobs without the right parts. Jobs were getting scheduled without checking if the crew had the expertise needed. I heard one story about a commercial installation that took 3 weeks longer than quoted because nobody thought to verify that the team they sent actually knew how to install that particular system type. They had to bring in an outside contractor to finish it, ate the entire profit margin plus extra, and the client was pissed. Without Lisa managing major accounts, they started losing contracts. She'd spent years building relationships with facility managers and purchasing directors at our top accounts. She knew their buildings, their equipment, their budgets, their priorities. She'd remember that the maintenance supervisor at St. Mary's Hospital liked his coffee black and hated phone calls before 9 a.m. That the school district procurement officer needed everything submitted 30 days before board meetings. That the county facilities director was a huge Broncos fan, and you better not schedule work during game days. Whoever they replaced her with didn't have those relationships, didn't have that knowledge, started treating these long-term clients like they were brand new accounts, sent generic proposals instead of customized solutions. The school district actually called Lisa at Apex to ask what was going on with Sterling. That's how bad it got. Without Tom running project management, their installation jobs started running over budget and behind schedule. Tom had been the guy who could juggle 12 projects simultaneously and somehow keep them all on track. He knew how to sequence work to maximize efficiency, knew which contractors were reliable and which ones needed constant supervision, knew how to spot problems before they became expensive disasters. The new project management team didn't have that experience. Jobs that should have taken 4 weeks were taking 7. Budgets that should have had 25% margins were barely breaking even or running at a loss. Clients were calling to complain about delays, and Dad didn't have good answers because he didn't actually know what was happening on the sites. I heard through the grapevine that my dad tried to hire replacements, but Sterling's reputation in the industry was taking a serious beating. Good people didn't want to work there when they kept hearing stories about the nepotistic disaster that was Derek's hire and the mass exodus of experienced staff. The word was out. Sterling wasn't a professional operation anymore. It was a family drama playing out with a business license. 3 months after I left, I ran into one of Sterling's warehouse guys at a supply distributor. Nice kid, always worked hard. "How's it going over there?" I asked. He looked around like he was worried someone might hear. "Dude, it's bad. We lost the hospital contracts. 2 of the school district buildings dropped us. Everybody's working crazy overtime trying to keep up, and your dad's losing his shit. Derek doesn't do anything except walk around acting important. Half the guys are looking for new jobs." "Sorry to hear that," I said, and I meant it for the employees, not for my dad. "Don't be sorry, man. Everybody knows they did you dirty. You deserved better." 2 weeks after that conversation, my phone rang. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but figured what the hell. "Hello? It's your father." "Oh, this should be good. What can I do for you, Dad?" "We need to talk. About you coming back." I actually pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at it, like maybe I'd heard wrong. "You want me to come back? Things have been challenging since you left. We need someone with your experience to stabilize things." "And what about Derek? Still director of business development, making $175,000? Silence. "He's transitioning to a different role." Translation. "We realized we freaked up, but don't want to admit it outright. Here's my counteroffer," I said. "No. Don't be childish about this." "I'm not being childish. I'm being professional. You had a chance to treat me fairly. You chose to treat me like shit while handing my underqualified brother a golden parachute. That showed me exactly where I stand with you. I've moved on. You should too. I'm offering you operations director. $90,000 salary. I'm already making $95,000 base plus bonuses at Apex. Try again. Fine. $100,000. And we'll discuss equity." You'll discuss it? That's not an offer. That's a maybe. Plus, even if you gave me $100,000, you're asking me to come back to fix all the problems you created by not listening to me in the first place. Why would I do that? Because it's family business. Because you'd be an owner someday. You know what? I'm done with this conversation. Good luck, Dad. I hung up. He called back 3 more times that day, left increasingly desperate voicemails. I didn't respond to any of them. Then Mom started calling. Then Derek, of all people, sent this long text about how the family needs me and how we're all struggling. And could I please just talk to Dad? Nope. Blocked, blocked, and blocked. 2 more months passed. I heard through multiple sources that Sterling was circling the drain. They'd lost about 40% of their contracts. Revenue was down to around $7 million, lower than when I'd started working there. They'd had to lay off about a third of their workforce. Word was that Dad had taken out a massive loan to try to keep things afloat, and now they couldn't make the payments. Then I got a call from a business attorney I'd never met. Said he was representing S in potential bankruptcy proceedings, and my father had given him permission to reach out to me about possibly consulting to help restructure the company. How bad is it? I asked. Without significant operational improvements and new contract revenue within the next 90 days, they'll have to file Chapter 11. And you think I can fix that? Your name came up repeatedly when we interviewed employees about what changed. Before and after your departure, I let that sink in. 3 years of my work systematically dismantled in 6 months because my dad was too stubborn and too busy playing favorites to recognize what he had. I'm going to be honest with you, I told the attorney. I have zero interest in saving that company. None. My father had the chance to value my contributions when I was there. He chose not to. That's on him. I understand, but I'm obligated to ask, is there any circumstance under which you'd consider helping? I thought about it. Thought about all those employees who didn't deserve to lose their jobs because of my dad's ego. Thought about the clients who'd get screwed if Sterling went under mid-contract. Thought about the satisfaction of making my dad admit he was wrong. Here's the only scenario I'd consider, I said. Full ownership transfer to me. He signs over 100% equity in the company. He exits completely. No advisory role, no board seat, nothing. I bring in a management team I trust, restructure however I see fit, and he has zero input. Those are my terms. That's a significant ask. That's my only offer. And honestly, he should take it. Because without me, that company is dead anyway. With me, at least the employees keep their jobs and the clients get served. He walks away with nothing either way. This way, at least something survives that has his name on it. I'll relay that to my client. 2 days later, Dad called me from his attorney's office. On speaker, "These terms are outrageous," he started. "Then don't accept them. File bankruptcy. Lose everything. But don't waste my time pretending you have leverage here. I built this company. I'm not just handing it over. You didn't build it. You founded it. I built it. The $14 million version that existed when I left, that was me. The $7 million disaster it is now, that's you and Derek. So yeah, you are handing it over. Or you're shutting it down. Your choice." His attorney jumped in. "Perhaps we could discuss a partnership structure where no partnerships, full transfer or nothing. Silence on the line." I could practically hear my dad's teeth grinding. "You're screwing your own father," he finally said. "No, I'm offering to save something you destroyed. You're just pissed that saving it means admitting you were wrong about everything. About me, about Derek, about what this company needed. And you know what the really funny part is? If you'd just given me a fair raise and treated me with basic respect, none of this would be happening. You'd still have your company. I'd still be running it. We'd still be growing. Instead, your ego killed your business. I'm just offering it a transplant." More silence. "I need time to think about this." "You have 48 hours. After that, my offer expires and you can figure it out yourself." "Clock's ticking, Dad." I hung up. Those 48 hours felt long. Part of me expected him to reject it out of pride. Part of me didn't even know if I wanted him to accept. Did I really want to go back to Sterling? Even if I owned it? But there was something poetic about it. The company he'd refused to treat me fairly at. Signing it over because his pride destroyed it. The golden child position he'd created getting eliminated. Me coming back not as the undervalued employee, but as the owner. Yeah, I wanted that. "Hour 47, his attorney called. "He's accepting your terms. We'll start drawing up the paperwork." He's actually going through with it? He doesn't have a choice. It's this or liquidation. And between you and me, I think losing the company to his son is slightly less humiliating than losing it to creditors. The paperwork took 3 weeks. Ownership transfer, loan assumption, restructuring agreements. I brought in my own attorney to make sure every detail was ironclad. No loopholes, no takesy-backsies. The day we signed everything, my dad looked like he'd aged 10 years. Sat across from me at the attorney's conference table, barely making eye contact. "You're making a mistake," he said as he signed the final page. "This company needs family at the helm." "It has family at the helm," I replied. "Me, just not the family member you wanted?" Derek wasn't even at the signing. I'd made it clear he was terminated effective immediately as part of the deal. Heard later he threw a massive fit, threatened to sue me, threatened to sue Dad. Dad apparently told him to grow up and get a real job. Almost felt bad for him. Almost. As my dad stood to leave, he tried one last manipulation. "Your mother's devastated, you know. This is killing her. Then she should have spoken up when you were treating me like garbage." Actions have consequences. Turns out that applies to parents, too. He left without another word. I officially took over SCS on a Monday. Spent the first week doing damage assessment. It was worse than I thought. Not just lost contracts and revenue. The entire company culture had turned toxic. Morale was in the toilet. People were afraid to make decisions. Everything was running on outdated systems because nobody had authority to implement changes. The warehouse was a mess. Inventory system had degraded back to paper clipboards. Found about $80,000 worth of parts that had expired or been sitting so long they were obsolete. The shop was disorganized. Tools missing, work bays cluttered, safety protocols being ignored. Talked to the techs who'd stayed. Most were looking for other jobs. The good ones felt disrespected and overworked. The mediocre ones were coasting because there was no accountability. Customer service was answering calls at like 60% rate. The rest went to voicemail that sometimes got checked. Our response time for service requests had gone from 4 hours to 2 days. 2 days for commercial HVAC emergencies. The financials were even worse than I expected. Not only was revenue down to $7 million, but profit margins had collapsed. Jobs that should have been profitable were barely breaking even because of poor estimating and worse execution. Overhead costs had actually increased despite lower revenue because Dad had been throwing money at problems instead of fixing root causes. First move, hired Ryan, Lisa, and Tom away from Apex. Took some negotiating. They were happy there, and I had to match their current salaries plus some. Ryan wanted $120,000. Lisa wanted $115,000. Tom wanted $125,000, plus equity stakes. I gave each of them 5% ownership immediately with the option to vest into more based on performance. All three agreed to come back as partners with skin in the game. Second move, brought in an HR consultant to rebuild the culture. Exit interviews with people who'd left. Anonymous surveys with people who stayed. The feedback was brutal, but useful. Management doesn't communicate. Nobody knows what the plan is. Derek was a joke. We miss the old leadership. Company feels rudderless. Created actual job descriptions for every position. Proper compensation structures tied to industry standards. Clear advancement paths so people knew how to move up. Performance review processes. Training programs. No more nepotism, no more favoritism. Just merit-based everything. If you did good work, you got recognized and paid accordingly. If you didn't, you got coached or counseled out. Rebuilt the operation systems I'd originally implemented. Brought back the digital dispatch. Renegotiated vendor contracts. Reinstated the preventive maintenance program. Fixed the inventory management. Set up proper project management protocols. Everything that had been working before I left, brought it all back, plus improvements I'd learned at Apex. Third move, reached out personally to every client we'd lost or was thinking about leaving. This wasn't delegatable. I called facility managers, purchasing directors, maintenance supervisors, explained the ownership change, took responsibility for failures they'd experienced, introduced the new management team, and outlined specifically how we were going to fix problems. Some were skeptical, rightfully so. We'd screwed up their buildings, missed deadlines, cost them money. But enough were willing to give us another shot, especially the ones who remembered working with me before. The hospital that had dropped us, got them back with a 6-month probationary contract. The school district, let us bid on their next project. It took 6 months of grinding before we stabilized. Every day was putting out fires and rebuilding trust. But revenue started climbing back up. Client retention improved. We rehired some of the laid-off employees who'd been good. Started winning new contracts. Year 1 under my ownership, we hit $12 million revenue. Not back to the $14 million peak yet, but climbing. Year 2, we hit $16 million. Year 3, last year, we cracked $20 million. SCS is now worth more than it's ever been. We've got 95 employees, all of them paid fairly. Ryan, Lisa, Tom, and I each own 25% of the company. We make decisions together. Everybody gets profit sharing. Culture is solid. And my dad? Last I heard, he and mom downsized to a smaller house. Derek's working sales at a car dealership in another state, bouncing from job to job like always. None of them have reached out since the ownership transfer went through. I haven't reached out to them either. Do I feel bad about how it went down? Sometimes, yeah. Would have been nice to have a family that actually valued me. Would have been nice if dad could have just paid me fairly and treated me with respect from the start. But mostly, I feel free. Free from the constant disrespect, the favoritism, the being taken for granted. Free from waiting for approval that was never coming. Free from watching my work get credited to someone else or dismissed as lucky. Some people say I was too harsh. That family should forgive. That I should have worked something out where dad kept partial ownership. Freak that. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting people keep hurting you. Family doesn't mean accepting disrespect. And keeping someone involved who destroyed what you built isn't noble. It's stupid. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.